So we are now taking a look at episodes 5 and 6 of Netflix's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Those episodes being, of course, Dreams in a Witch's House and An Exorcism in Greendale. And I want to say right from the start, we're still going steady and strong. These two episodes kind of dropped off a little bit for me in the sense that, again, I'm kind of glad I'm reviewing these in 2-episode blocks because this is one of those instances where it felt like 2 episodes that could have been kind of like a 1+. I don't know if we got a lot of information, a lot of great things out of this in comparison to essentially a solid 2 hours of viewing. That's my only concern. So let me jump in. I'm going to combine these 2 episodes into one because there's a lot of issues I'm going to be talking about that stretch over both episodes. So let me dive right in first to handle the cliffhanger. I did love the cliffhanger at the end of episode 4. It turns out what that thing is inside that Hellraiser box that Sabrina's dad built and she was able to open is something called a batty bat. And hope I have that pronunciation correct because, again, but a batty bat is a nightmare demon that her father apparently had caught up in this thing, and now it's loose, and guess what 2 things it wants to do? 1, revenge, and 2, it has to do with let's just make sure everybody has nightmares, which of course makes sense that what a nightmare demon would do. That gets into one of the aspects that I really go, okay, did we really learn anything? Because we started getting into the dreams and or nightmares of our cast. I was expecting huge, major revelations. Don't really think we got any. I mean, to be honest with you, look what we got. Sabrina, she's torn between being a witch and her mortal world. Ambrose has this sense of like just self-doubt and not a lot of hope he'll be able to get out of his current predicament. I will say this, the autopsy and eating the heart scene though, that was a major plus. With Aunt Hilda, this idea that she's constantly a victim of her own sister and she's never just going to be able to have control of her own life. And with Aunt Zelda, it's the idea of trying to balance this idea of beating the Dark Lord while also be doing right by her family and the heartbreak and the hardship she feels of this idea that someday, if this continues, Hilda's just not going to return. So again, I thought these were all very interesting dynamics. I like that they solidified a lot of things that we knew about the characters. But again, I don't think I learned anything new. The only thing that I did learn, well, 2 things. One, that Wardell / Madam Satan essentially was put in a position to have to own up to Sabrina, at least somewhat. Being the mother of demons, being the mom of the nightmare demon, obviously there was only so much that she was going to be able to hold and kind of play back. So I thought that was a nice, pleasant surprise. The second thing I learned is that a lot of people, including myself, are torn between calling her Wardell and Wardwell. So if I make that mistake, I'm apologizing in advance. Just cut me some slack. Just be slightly kind in the comment section. But again, this idea that she had to own up to Sabrina, but even in that sense, we see smartness come into play because she just plays upon Sabrina's sympathies. Yes, I'm a witch, but I knew your father. I'm working on behalf of your father. I'm here to watch out for you because I was also excommunicated. I fell in love with somebody who was immortal. I mean, just checks off all the proper boxes for emotional manipulation. And again, I thought that was very effective, but I also think it speaks volumes to 2 problems that I had coming out of this. In the short term, and we see this, how this plays out in the 6th episode, is that Wardell also creates now a matter of, well, Sabrina doesn't want a chaperone. So her thinking is, well, why am I going to have to deal with my dad's chaperone? I don't need somebody looking over me. I need to take care of this. So Wardell bought herself a little time, but she still has to make up for some major stuff. The other thing I want to talk about, too, is Sabrina's decision-making in these 2 episodes. She's going through a lot. I get it. There are a lot of things that are in play. Lord knows I wouldn't know what it's like choosing between being a witch and the mortal world. But there's just some things that I would think, considering what she's questioned up to this point, she doesn't question. She doesn't question the convenience of Wardell's story. She doesn't question the convenience of Nicholas Scratch and all the ways that he kind of comes into play. She so easily doesn't realize what she could be doing to Harvey and just easily dismisses that. And again, I'm not saying this doesn't play into the overall character and what she's doing in regards to being torn and slowly being moved towards the witch world. But again, I think anybody who's watched the first episodes and going into these 2 will realize there were some logic and some inconsistencies that we're expecting a little better from Sabrina Spellman. So that kind of threw me a little bit. The whole idea behind the exorcism that we want to talk about in this regards, I liked the presence that Zelda and Hilda played in this regard. Hilda, I loved it because she has developed this idea of, you're going to excommunicate me? Well, then I'm going to use whatever my powers and abilities to do right by my family and do right by specifically my niece. I also love Zelda because it's this continuing this forward momentum of her not just going in line anymore. Now that she's taking on this mother role with Sabrina, but also taking on this mother role in regards to, I think, as this moves along, the students at the school, and also taking on a power role that she's not going to be the victim. I mean, Father Blackwood needs her for his wife, for her to be able to give birth properly. So that brings a lot of power, and I love to see Hilda and Zelda exercising that power at the end. Because considering everything they've done, there are just so many ways they could have just gotten nailed for being involved in that exorcism, especially when you're talking about Father Blackwood, who doesn't exactly view, demonic possessions as a bad thing. You would expect, obviously. And that also, on a side note, I do love the moment where Sabrina threatens to go to a Catholic church to do exorcism if she can't get help in her own church. Which, again, I thought was a nice touch. And overall, again, it was an empowerment move by Zelda and Hilda that I really appreciated. Again, episodes 5 and 6, I liked. I thought they were solid. They were decent standalones with some things that we could get out of it. But now that we're going to the remaining 4 episodes, I'm really looking for things to start speeding up again.